We are a couple of minutes late, but nevertheless, welcome to the regularly scheduled October 26th meeting of the Village of Pinehurst Historic Preservation Commission. The purpose of the commission is to decide applications for certificates of appropriateness for new construction or major work within the Pinehurst Historic District, and to do so by conducting hearings and making findings of fact when such applications come before us. By law, the commission is directed to take no action except to prevent construction or alterations that would be incongruous with the special character of the historic district. I'm John Taylor. I'm the chair of the commission. I'd like to ask each commissioner, starting from my far left, to state his or her name for the record.
Angelique Fabiani.
Richard Vincent.
John Taylor.
Kara Mathis.
Carl Ecker.
Roxanne Vaitkus.
David Herring.
We are a full commission today. No one is absent. We have a quorum, and so we can proceed. Also present today on behalf of staff is Maria Carpenter, and for that matter, Alex Cameron, because he's going to get the floor here in just a minute. We have a couple of other orders of business, but before we do that, I'd like to throw the floor over to Alex for a brief announcement.
All right, thank you, John. So some of you may know that recently our Shannon Constantino, who has been the planning and administrative specialist for 2.5 years, almost a little over 2 years, she has now been promoted to the village clerk position. So not nearly as fun as dealing with us anymore. But with that, I am pleased to announce that Shelby Grow, next to Shannon there, is going to be taking that slot and be our administrative specialist. So she will be the clerk to the board, just like you guys dealt with Shannon. Every month you see emails and notices and posting of agenda and other items, and being back there taking minutes and trying to collaborate everything that you guys say and put it out there for your review every month. And Shelby has been with the village for just a little over 2 years, and she has been at the front desk as our customer service representative. So it's going to be a nice, smooth transition. And of course, we've got Shannon still right next to her to help get us all back to where we need to be. So I would like to welcome to everyone Shelby Grow.
Shelby, welcome. We will look forward to working with you. I will say when this announcement first came out, I wondered whether there was some sort of action that we could take to prevent losing Shannon, and I couldn't find one. Maybe we need to incorporate. David, why don't you put that in the next set of standards, that we get right of first refusal over losing any staff member. But in any event, welcome, and we look forward to working with you. Back to our regular meeting here. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of our last meeting. All commissioners have been provided with copies of the draft minutes. Does any commissioner have any changes to suggest? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted? Moved by Carl. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Richard. All in favor, I say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved.
Can we do separate ones, one for the work session and one for the regular meeting?
If we must, we shall. Let us consider that to be the minutes of the previous formal meeting. May I have a motion to accept the minutes of last month's work session? Moved again by Carl. Second?
Second.
Seconded by Kara. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And they are adopted as well. May I now have a motion to enter the public hearing? Moved once again by Carl, who now has the hat trick. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Roxanne. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are now in a public hearing. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. That means that anyone desiring to testify must be sworn in, and the commission is required to consider only facts presented in the hearing. The proceedings are being video recorded. I ask the commissioners now if they have visited any of the sites on our docket and whether they've had any ex parte communications with respect to any of the cases we'll be considering today. Start again from the left, please.
Visited all sites, no ex parte communications.
Visited both sites, no ex parte.
Visited all, no ex parte.
Visited both sites, no ex parte communication.
Visited both, no ex parte.
Visited both sites, no ex parte communication.
Visited both, no communication.
In each case that the commission will hear this afternoon, staff will first present a summary of the application, staff's evaluation of the extent to which the application complies with the commission standards for such an application or raises issues that require further information, the staff's comments on the application, and where appropriate, staff's recommendation for commission action. The application and its supporting documents, as well as staff's detailed report, will then be entered into the record. Commissioners will have an opportunity to question staff about this report and their testimony. Next, the applicant or applicant's representatives will have an opportunity to provide any additional information supporting the application and to address any questions or issues identified in the staff's report. Commissioners will also have an opportunity to question the applicant witnesses. After the applicant's presentation, if any member of the public wishes to present evidence either in support of or opposition to the application, please come forward at that time, and I will swear you in. Please remember that the commission is interested in facts that will help us decide whether the proposed work would be congruous with the special character of the Pinehurst Historic District. As chair, I have right to exclude testimony that is not relevant to that subject, but I am not required to do so. Commissioners will have an opportunity to question any member of the public. If the applicant or staff wishes to respond to the testimony, I will permit them to do so. And with that, we will now proceed to our first case. Maria, I think I need to swear you in first. So please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to all cases on our docket shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please read us in the first, well, actually, I think the first on our document is being deferred again for another month. Is that correct?
Yes, they have asked that we continue it through the November meeting. They're making a few changes, and they also had a medical procedure to attend today. So we'll do them again in November.
And as an administrative matter, I believe that prior to continuing it, we took a motion to reopen the evidentiary portion so they can submit new information. That I assume remains in effect even though we're now, was that just to continue it for 1 month or is that an open-ended continuance?
The evidentiary portion will remain open, but we do need to make a motion to continue it to November.
May I have a motion from a commissioner to continue COA 2023-00274 to the regularly scheduled November meeting? Moved by Carl, a second.
Second.
Seconded by Angelique. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. It is continued to the November meeting. And do you have, that is, I think, the 16th, I believe?
Yes. November
It's the third Thursday, as is our custom. It's been properly noticed, so we will continue to November 16. So now,
Great. So now, the purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request for a major certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for painting the unpainted brick facade white at 38 Chinquapin Road. The property is identified as Moore County Parcel ID number 000-30476. The property owner is Connor Smith, and the applicant is Daniel Brown. So as I stated, they would like to paint the facade, the currently unpainted brick Sherwin-Williams Whitetail. And that structure was built in 1950, and the lot is approximately 0.12 acres in size. This is major work that requires your review because it is a minor work item not approved by the village planner. So the meeting was noticed in accordance with the PDO and the North Carolina General Statutes. And you can see the subject property in the hashed out area. The notified adjacent property owners are outlined in red. So here you can see, since Sherwin-Williams paints are not on our approved color palette, I found the Benjamin Moore Cloud White, which would be pretty darn similar there to the Sherwin-Williams Whitetail.
unlike the other 150 shades of white in our color palette.
I was glad I could find one that matched. And here, the applicant did provide some pictures of other buildings in the village core that are painted brick. First Bank, the center one is Doomberries Annex, kind of near Drum and Quill. And the third one is 77 Cherokee Road. The applicant has submitted an application and provided additional documentation in an attempt to satisfy the burden of proof. The commission will need to determine if painting the brick is congruous with the historic district and if it meets the historic district standards. And I would now like to submit into the record the staff report with the attachments and exhibits, this presentation, and the application and applicant's materials and exhibits.
Without objection, the material submitted is admitted into the record. Do commissioners have any questions for Maria? David?
Thanks for the color comparison. Very helpful.
You're welcome. I was hoping you'd like that.
Any other questions for Maria? Are there representatives from the applicant here? Sir, please come forward to the standing mic first. Please state your name, spell your last name for the record, and state your relationship to the property.
Daniel Brown, B-R-O-W-N, and I'm the general contractor.
Could you let me swear you in, please, if you'd raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to this application shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Stand or sit as you prefer.
I'll stand.
Very good. Is there anything you would like to add to what Maria has presented?
As far as the color change, or that would be.
Well, I believe it's unpainted brick at the moment,
Oh, it
and
is
you're proposing to
unpainted.
paint it, yes?
Yeah, the idea was that there's been so much patchwork done on that brick because of holes that have been there and the windows we've had to taken out and put in. And then plus just some of the joints aren't the same color. So I was thinking we'd just give it a good fresh coat of white paint and just make it nice and clean look. And, I mean, that's kind of what the idea was. Because we've done a lot of windows that we had to take out that were rotted, so we've had to brick them back in. So some of the joints aren't perfectly lining up, so I figured a nice coat of white paint would just blend it all in and make it look a lot better.
Good. Questions from commissioners for the applicant?
I just had a question about the trim. When you say a coat of white paint on the facade, does that include the trim work and the windows and that, or is it just the brick?
All the trim and the windows were white to begin with.
Correct?
We're going to just keep that all white. I think that the shutters, they're looking at maybe black on the shutters for the windows.
Okay, so you're going to leave the existing white trim on the windows, soffits, fascia, all of that, and then paint the white tail on the other?
Paint white on
Okay.
the brick part, yeah.
And those two whites, they'll blend, but they're not going to be the same?
I mean, the finish we put on it was a pure white
Yeah.
on the overhangs.
Yeah.
I think it would blend fine.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I mean, I have a white piece of paper with your white tail on here, and actually, the white tail picks up the patina of the brick in that courtyard. I don't know if anyone noticed that. A lot of the brick has, is it effluence? Efflorescence.
Right.
And it has this, it almost matches the efflorescence, matches that white tail color.
Well, actually, it's got a tint of yellow in it.
Yeah.
So when you get like the evening sun, it'll kind of get
Yeah,
a
it's not real
light yellow
stark.
glow. It's not like a pure white, yeah.
Vanilla ice cream.
It's an old Sherwin-Williams color, you know.
What about the cupola on top of the building? Will that be left white, or will that be painted?
That's a good question. It's more of a trim part, so I think I would keep with the
White.
trim because it's wood.
Okay.
So basically, we're just doing the brick.
I don't think that was a part of the application anyway. It was to paint the brick, if I recall.
No, it's the facade. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it said to paint.
I think it's only the brick, and there was no mention of shutters in this application, I don't think.
Okay, sorry, I thought facade included trim.
We appreciate the detail, but that's not before us at the moment.
That's fine. Okay.
Roxanne, anything
I'm
further?
good, I'm good.
Other questions from commissioners? I had one, and I apologize because I meant to find it. I thought we had in our standard that exterior brick was in general not to be painted. There clearly are many other white brick buildings right in the median. It's not inappropriate. And I agree with in the case, I'm sorry, David?
Page 32, item 8.
It's under the changes to residential.
Right. And I believe the commercial standards reference the fact that the residential standards are applicable to this.
This is under the section masonry.
Right. I mean, there's nothing inappropriate with painting this white, except the interior facades of all the other buildings in that courtyard are not painted brick. I'm not saying I have a problem with that.
I'm not sure I agree. It seems to me that the standards are quite clear, that existing brick that has not been painted shall not be painted.
Now,
Right.
it is damaged in some places. It is not
But I'm not
having,
saying that we can't approve it. I'm
Right.
just saying that's what the standards say.
that is the reason why I'm raising it.
Okay.
Can, I don't know if I'm, okay. So my concern with this, and tell me if I need to wait until the discussion, is this is historic brick, and applying paint to it is going to damage the brick underneath it. So a lime wash or a mineral wash would achieve the same look without destroying the brick.
Well, there's numerous different types of brick on that building. A lot of it's been changed through the years. And the brick that is around the bar area, I think, was done back in like 90, when they bricked that in, and I think it was Alan Cancel that did the job at that time. But so it's all modular brick, but there's different variations slightly. Some is smooth, some's got a little bit of a texture, so it's kind of a mismatch of, different things. So that's what I was trying to do, was trying to give it the white color. Now, as far as a whitewash, I'm not sure. We could think about that. I know the one building's got somewhat of a German smear on it.
The applicant did send us pictures of the current exterior unpainted, which I can pull up, and we can enter them as an exhibit if you'd like.
We have it.
I think that'd be worthwhile. You also received permission some while ago to remove a feature which has left kind of an outline of where that feature was on the
Yeah.
brick. In your opinion, is that something that could be cleaned up as opposed to painting it?
It's got a lot of liquid nails that have been dried on it, and you'd have to actually grind into the brick. I mean, we'd have to clean it off, scrape it off the best we could to paint it. I don't know if you get the brick finish back unless you did grind it and take it off.
Not a masonry expert, that's why I'm asking the question.
You can see on that picture, like the corner of the window, it had a stress crack, and that's kind of caulked in there, and there's other variations all over the place. And you can kind of see the different color in the brick, just from the different brick and the age of the brick. So I was just trying to get a good clean line through there. And then, your roof varies. You've got 3 different roofs on there too. So you got like slate on that side, you got metal on the other, and then you got shingles on the back side. So
And we also approved replacing of a door. I don't think it's that door, I think it is the door on the side. Or might,
I want to say the color they wanted to paint was black.
but it's not that door, which I consider to be sort of in the internal courtyard. It's not the one that faces out on the alley, if you will.
you approved, I think, that French door.
Yes,
That was, we replaced that to match the one that was there. And we put the 3 new picture windows in that matched the original ones, right there, those units. The front door, you said we couldn't do it because it was going to be more of a contemporary door. It had a horizontal line.
That's what I recall. A big, long vertical handle, I think, maybe.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
But, and then the side door, both of those doors are probably going to have to be rebuilt, but they will be rebuilt to the same specs that they are, because the side door especially is just falling apart on that.
So I guess in terms of the brick, I understand the aesthetic inconsistencies, which I personally feel tell a story about, what has been done to that building. But I feel like covering it with a paint that's going to destroy the actual makeup of the brick so that down the line, you're going to have failing brick, which we can actually see in some of the buildings that have been submitted as examples of painted brick. You can actually go and look at those buildings and that brick is failing now because of the paint. So for me, a mineral wash that will not destroy the brick but will have the same whitewash effect would be preferred.
Other questions from commissioners for the applicant? Thank you very much. Do we want to admit these photographs as evidence into the record? I think we probably should.
Yep.
And mark them as whatever the next sequential number is. I think that's a good idea. Okay, thank you very much. As I said earlier, is there any member of the public who wishes to present evidence either in support of or in opposition to the application? Seeing none. I will consider the record in this case now closed, and it is time for the commissioners to deliberate. David?
Kara said something which I think is on the money. The building is really old. It's changed a lot over its life, some of it fairly recently, some of it a long time ago. To me, that's the charm of the building. As Kara said, it tells the story of its life. I'm looking for some reason why we would not stick with the requirements of our standards. And I'm not convinced that making it all pretty white like a new building is a good enough reason, not to mention the problem with the deteriorating the brick when you paint it white. So that's my thought.
Other discussion?
I'm in line with David. I don't think the applicant has made a good case for not applying the standard that we have, which is that brick should not be painted unless it was previously painted. I don't think it would be compatible or congruous.
Carl, you were?
Back to the first, I think maybe it was the second picture, Maria. Yeah, that's fine. And then there was one just before that. There you go. I'm embarrassed to say I spent a lot of time back here at the wine shop. So I'll say, and just my initial reaction was, paint brick, whoa, what's the good reason for painting brick, right? We allow it often. Applicant proves congruity. The number one case that's come before us has really been, I've replaced window or garage door, I've bricked it up, I can't find the existing brick, it doesn't match. And a lot of the time, that's a very good reason. I would say initially, the gut reaction was that this is not going to be congruous. The more time I've spent back here, there's really not that much brick on this building. The building, not as much as the building on the Chinquapin side. I think if that two-story backside, if that was painted, that would be a stark contrast. This is a little lower. The window, if you go to the picture on the south bottom, the windows absorb a lot of that space. There's not a lot of brick surface area if you look at this. The majority of brick that really captures you when you spend time back here is the brick patio. You have different levels back here, so it is kind of cut up. It's a little quirky, but I think, as Kara said, that adds to the character. You got planters, so it's kind of that sort of al fresco outside hodgepodge mixed space, and it all seems to work. So I've softened, for me, the more I look at this, the more I look at that color, the more I can get comfortable with this being congruous, because it is back there, it is hidden from the street, it is a little different. I think it all works, and there's not as much brick as I originally thought. I do feel, and again, this is feel, this is not saying that I'd vote either way, but when you look at the Village Wine Shop, the front of the Village Wine Shop, the entrance, whether you call it lime wash, German schmear, or just regular paint that's been rubbed on with a rough brush, like a cement brush, that you would scratch up sidewalks to give it some texture, you can achieve that same look in a multitude of ways. The front of that Village Wine Shop looks so good. And I think, to be congruous with this whole area, not just the building, but this back patio area, if you could pick up those elements, like Kara said, it may not be done as well because you got the joints, you got certain things where you have to be heavier on that paint, but I think that would go a long way to make this feel more congruous, not just with the current building, but with that whole patio area and that effect, because there is such synergy between those uses.
That Germanized, which I thought was the efflorescence or whatever, that's in front of the wine shop. I didn't look at the front, but I looked at the back in that courtyard, and there's the two-story wall. A large portion of it is that Germanized overpaint. And the paint color he has chosen is that color. It's nice. It's a very soft vanilla. So even if he did the wash, like you say, a lime wash, maybe with the same coloration, not the stark white, really would look good in there, I think.
There's a way to achieve both. There may be a way to sort of soften the no paint blow, but also cover a real need, which is you have multiple types of bricks, you have cracks, you have joints that are being patched. It doesn't look good as is. So
I was struck by a couple of things. First of all, having spent a lot of time in New England, college, and living there afterwards and what have you, and when you walk through the archway off of Chinkopin to get back there, you go from a lot of white facades to what is primarily at the moment red brick facade. And I hadn't thought of this until Richard just mentioned it. If we were to allow this to be painted white, on what basis would we prevent the owner of the two-story building from painting that white? I'm also was somewhat put in mind of, for any of you who've been there, the architecture at Yale, where very often the outside of a courtyard and the inside are completely different. It could be Gothic on the outside and it could be brick colonial on the inside. And at first it's a little jarring, but I think it's neat. So my leaning is not to allow this to be painted white, personal leaning only. I'm not sure that I'm following, Richard, the proposal that either you or Kara are making, so I can't opine on that, but what is before us is to paint it white.
Can I clarify something? So when we say the facade, we're talking about the whole building, right? Like including the alley facade, because that's not the alley facade.
I thought we were including the whole building, facades, the whole building. It doesn't say front facade.
The whole thing.
It's
All-
all the way around that building. just
All
for
four
clarification.
elevations.
See, and so to your point, Richard, yes, if you're sitting back there, no one would see it. But from Chinkopin, looking down that alley, you would have a giant white two-story building with brick in front. And you're absolutely right, that's precedent. I mean, this would end up being one of the pictures that the next applicant would use to demonstrate that we can paint all of the buildings.
Clearly, there are a number of white brick buildings. It is not incongruous on that basis at all, but
But again, the historic ones are failing, and I have pictures of where the brick is failing, and it's our job, as stewards, to make sure that the future of these buildings remain intact.
When I walk around the building, counterpoint to Richard's description of how you see that courtyard, when I first approached it, I'm approaching the two-story side, which is a real classical two-story elevation. The brick is in reasonably good shape, particularly considering how old it is. It's a classic piece of architecture here in the village. As you go down the alley, you're going by this two-story brick facade on the right, and I presume it's two-story on the left and two-story on the right as you go back to the courtyard. By the way, the drum and quill piece is all brick. It's in pretty good shape, even though it's got lots of the same kinds of flaws. The two, because they're old, they have some wear and tear about their life. They hang together in that way. By the time you get back to the courtyard, where it's a much lower scale, more or less one story, I think there is some repair work that can be done For example, they could point up the mortar joints and solve the mortar problem without having to paint the entire building. The misalignment of joints, the variation in brick textures, I think all of that is fairly minor. The whole thing hangs together, to me, like its neighbors with a few exceptions in that courtyard, like an old brick building, like what it is we're trying to preserve.
And I do want to clarify with the lime wash. The lime wash is just an option that will not destroy the brick. If you want to paint a house white, this is, a mineral wash is something that can achieve that look. It's not a German schmear. So if in your mind you're, conceptualizing, oh, it won't be fully painted brick, you can fully paint it with a mineral wash.
Is it opaque or
Yes,
transparent?
like it can be. Yeah.
Opaque,
So
okay.
it wouldn't have that, worn look. It
So-
would look like paint.
So what you're saying is you're probably okay if you do the mineral wash, you would still have it would still be a white building. It just is with an integrity to the material that's going to
Well, I think
save
that
the
there's
brick.
two pieces to this. So one is maintaining the integrity of the brick, which you won't do if you use latex paint. And then the other part is, does this aesthetically, mesh? And personally, I don't even like brick buildings, and I want this to stay brick because that is how it was built, and that's how it, adds to the character of downtown.
Just to remind you, you have to stick to the standards that apply to it and not.
Well, okay,
offer
then
them
the
other
standard that says we don't
suggestions.
paint unpainted brick.
Let me ask a slightly different question, because I have at least a sense of the direction that we are heading. Is this a case where we would want to offer the applicant, if they so chose, the opportunity to come back and modify this? Or are the modifications that are being discussed such that it would almost require a separate application? Can their existing application be modified to not request painting it, but one of the other treatments that have been proposed?
Wouldn't change my mind.
Yeah, same.
That's a different question. I'm not asking how you're going to vote on this case, much less a hypothetical continuation. Maria, what would your planner's opinion be on that?
It'd probably be a big change and it would require another application. They'd have to sit down and see if that's something that they want to do and reapply.
So whether we denied this formally, or whether we are opted to continue it, to give them the opportunity, and if they chose to make material changes, that would be their choice, and they would come back to you and you would say, well, we really ought to make this a separate application.
Well, you're here today just to consider them painting the brick facade.
Right.
So that's what's before you. You need to decide whether you want to approve that or deny it. And then if they want to come back with another
So it's
idea,
specifically paint it with the latex paint that they have
that's what they have put forward.
proposed, yeah.
Can I just ask a question? The actual building, does anyone know, I think I heard there were different dates. Some of it is
In
old.
39.
Then
prior
some,
to
but there's
1939.
was there addition put on there in the 50s or 60s? So we're not talking about a totally antique building. There's been changes to it over time.
The f-
And,
All predating the existence of HPC standards,
yeah,
yes.
okay. So we have it's not like we have a pristine antique building here. Okay.
Well,
Just
and
wanna
it is
make sure.
historic. It's in the plans for 1939, so sometime in the 1930s, which means that the brick is historic.
Do you know if it's one of the landmarked, one of the contributing buildings in the landmark? Does anyone know?
I think it's important to remember that what we do here is not connected in any way to that.
That's true.
And I think that distinction was removed. We no longer consider whether something is contributing or not.
It's a historic district,
Yeah.
put it at that.
And my recollection was the cutoff for that was 1948, because that was the year Donald Ross died. And so if this has elements of 1939, presumably it might have been at one point in
Okay.
time. But I don't think that is germane to the discussion or the ultimate vote.
Okay.
It sounds like, John, and you went there, it sounds like painting, current paint seems to be a major issue and a non-starter. I don't know if we got clarity on the continuance piece, if it's deny this, but yet give the applicant an opportunity to continuance. I'm not speaking on the future application if it was continued, but I would be hard pressed not to be able to see congruity or agree with the applicant if he bolstered his argument on congruity when you have similar kinds of lime wash German smear right next door to this and adjacent to it.
But again, it's not the same thing. It's not, like, this would be a white building. So this is,
I'm not talking about this. I'm saying, were we to continue and the applicant came back and did a modification or work with staff in any which way, shape, or form, and had more meat to come back and plead his case, that would be something where he would have a better opportunity to argue for congruency, seeing as those neighbors have those same and very similar features. So,
Rich, I think I agree with that, and what I was trying to get to with Maria is it possible to alter this in a way that might be the case, or realistically, are the changes so significant that it amounts to a second application?
That is a significant change. So they've put forth painting the brick. So that's what you're here to consider today.
you're just saying a different
If you
kind of
deny the
paint.
painting and they want to come back with an alternative, they can do that. But we're not here to discuss with them alternatives.
Right.
It's
The application is
let
to
them
paint it
the
white.
brick.
It's not to do
That-
other things. But again, I'm happy to ask for a motion to approve or not to approve. Is there any difference with, I'm trying to be cooperative with the applicant. Is there any real difference if the changes that seem to be what I would call a consensus here, even though we don't, if those are substantial enough that it effectively requires a separate application, then probably we're better off voting to approve or not to continue. That's what I'm trying to get at. Okay. Other questions, deliberation among the commission? And is there anyone who would care to make a motion of any kind?
I'll be happy to try one. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission deny a certificate of appropriateness and find the proposed major work at 38 Chinkapin Road is not consistent with the Historic District standards and is deemed incongruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact.
We have a motion from David Herring. Is there a second? Seconded by Carl. Is there any discussion, further discussion of the motion? I'd like to call for each commissioner to vote. Angelique, starting with you.
Okay, wait, we're voting on a denial, right?
Yes, the motion before us is to deny the application. So if you vote aye, you are voting to deny the application.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
The vote is 6-1 with Roxanne dissenting. I'm sorry, but your application is not approved. I think you have a sense as to what we would be looking for, and would encourage you to work with Maria, and would look forward to seeing you again. I'm sorry, please come and speak into the microphone.
Having the German smear or the whitewash presented?
I think
Oh,
that's
wait,
kind of
wait,
a hypothetical that's hard for, very difficult for me to answer.
It's seven opinions here, it's hard to say.
My suspicion would be that if you consult with Maria, you will get closer to the truth.
Sorry, Maria.
That's not a guarantee. That's an approximation, that's not a guarantee.
Yeah, I got you.
You
we-
haven't
we-
seen any, what they'd want to do, what color
Right.
it would be, or anything. There's nothing put before you, so you can't really say for sure.
I mean,
either.
I think I would say, certainly on behalf of myself as an individual, but I think on the commission, these are the types of buildings that we think we exist for. The work, obviously, there's been a lot of work going on the inside over which we have no dominion. And we want to be sure that what comes out on the outside is as good or better than what it is today. I mean, it's good for the village to have this back being up and operating business, not going on through, and I don't know what's going on the inside, but anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That is our last and only application today. So therefore, that concludes the public hearing. May I have a motion to close the public hearing and return to the regular commission meeting? Carl, going for the clean sweep. Do I have a second?
Second.
And seconded by Kara. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. The motion passes. We are now in a regular meeting. This is a public meeting. You all are welcome to stay and observe, but only members of the commission and its staff may speak. You've been provided with a copy of the minor work and staff approvals. I will comment that one of those approvals was for my house. I did come in, and actually this is going to lead to a request. So for full disclosure, we have an 1895 cottage. The screen porch, the ceiling was already painted a light color of blue. I requested that we use a different color of blue, which is one that we've used in our house in Michigan. It's very much in the tradition of haint blue, for those of you who know the Gullah Geechee and the Low Country in South Carolina. I'm not going to take up more commission time, but I'll be happy to talk to you about that. And in connection with that, there is a part of the tradition is that you paint the entryway over your front door to prevent evil spirits from coming in. So in addition to repainting the inside a slightly different color of light blue, I requested the ability to paint over and was granted, paid my fee, submitted my COA application, and I actually did the painting myself 2 days ago. So that's full disclosure.
Yes, that's right.
So did the evil spirits stay away?
Say again?
Did the evil spirits
Yet
stay
to be
away?
seen.
Well, this is actually, this is one of the reasons why I raised this. In researching the 8 or 9 colors of blue, we have 150 colors of white, but in the approved palette for blues, number one, in my humble opinion, 3 or 4 of them are actually green, not blue. And all of the blues that we have, all the things that I would consider blue are similar to the lower band here. They are a very dark blue. There is not a single light blue color there. In the same way, we had a application come before us a couple of months ago with a color of gray that was nowhere close to any of the approved colors of gray, all of which are very dark colors. I found that incongruous. I would love to find a volunteer who would be willing to take a look at the existing colors and perhaps suggest 1 or 2 more that we might add. I'm looking for a volunteer anywhere. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to volunteer? Sold. I actually have the paint chips at home with the approved colors that we have already, which I will be happy to supply you with. Give us your color first. I will show you my color as well. It was actually in the vicinity of 2 of them, but it was distinctly brighter. If the main part of the screen were a blue, it was sort of that contrast with most of them, but not all of them.
Are we talking about that blue?
Yes.
Better look.
That's not even blue. I'm looking at the screen here. That I would call brown, but I could be wrong. But there are lots of colors like the color of Carl's jeans. There were none that were even remotely like the color of his shirt or my shirt. Actually, the color was not too dissimilar to the shirt that I'm wearing. So there's historic precedent for it. I brought my history in to plead my case to Maria and to Mark as well, who sat in on it.
Treat you well?
They treated me superbly, but they actually asked, I think, what was the right question. They said, if this had to come before the commission, what would you say? How would you rule? And I said, I'm kind of possibly a biased witness, but I would have ruled in favor of it, as we did with respect to the light gray that we approved. Now, it's a separate question whether this should be approved as a primary color or a trim color. I will defer that to our fine volunteer. I think it might be appropriate as a trim color and might not be appropriate as a primary color, but again, I will defer. With that, my making whole and my mea culpa is now complete. Are there any other questions with regard to the minor staff or minor work or staff approvals? Is there any other business?
Work session?
Oh, yes, we're going to get to that. Given that we have not managed to maintain anywhere close to the pace that I was hoping we would be able to maintain, and understanding we are heading into the holidays, would it be possible for us to start a work session at 2:30 and give ourselves 90 minutes rather than just 60, because 60 has not seemed to be enough to get through these things? And I would propose to do it on the date of our next meeting, which is November 16th. Maria is shaking her head.
I think November and December with the holidays and the shorter time between meetings, we're not going to have, staff has been very busy lately. We're not going to have time for work sessions. So January,
Before we debate that, do you have a sense for applications? Well, we're past the deadline now, correct, for
we are. So we have 3 for November.
3 for November?
One of which we've seen twice, or 3 times, depending on how you count.
That's 3
One
counting the
25 Graham is
continuations.
one of them, yes.
2 new ones and,
Correct.
okay.
Yep.
Look, it's not reasonable of us to put additional pressure on staff. We all appreciate the job that you do, and you have lots of other things you have to do other than cater to us. That's unfortunate.
Can we do it on a different day? Well, you're saying all of November.
Well,
Do we have to have staff at a work session if we just are discussing and
I
trying
think
to?
technically no, but I for one appreciate their input, and
Oh,
we
yeah.
occasionally come up with questions that,
Absolutely, but if we're just trying to refine what we have and then go in front of them in January with what we've refined?
to the extent that we will not be approving anything, I would actually like to do that. I would like to continue the momentum of us coming as 7 of us to an agreement. It all has to be brought back to you all anyway before we were formally incorporated or take it to council. Is there any reason why we could not meet as a commission, staff attending if able?
I'm not in favor of putting additional workload on the staff in any way.
So we can or can't do it by ourselves.
And there's a more. I absolutely do not dispute that, but most of the time gets taken up by the 7 of us trying to figure out what the heck it is we want to say. And it is highly probable that I will not be here for the December meeting. I don't know the exact date. I could probably figure it out. Second. The 21st, yes. I will not be here on December 21st, which is neither here nor there. I'm sure I can commandeer someone to act as acting chair. I'd really love for us to meet for some period of time on November, try and get through the remainder of this with the clear proviso that we're not going to make any motions or take any action. It's all going to have to come back and be discussed with staff. And we might even be able to produce a version ourselves to send to staff that you could review on your own outside of the context of a formal meeting. And whether that comes back, whether there is a December work session or whether that work session becomes January, which will be my last meeting, I'm then term limited out as of the last meeting in January, which again is neither here nor there. By the way, just I don't think it's inappropriate, Carl, for me to mention, Carl informed me earlier today that they're moving out of Southern Pines. I'm sorry, moving out of Pinehurst, possibly as early as December. So we're going to need to find one replacement commission member for Carl, and ultimately we'll have to find one for me as of January.
Well, that solves it. We'll do a 4-hour session in November.
We can start at 7:30 in the morning. I don't mean,
You need a microphone.
oh, sorry, Pam.
Garcia's that day also.
Yeah, we have a lot of conflicting issues. Alex would prefer that at least one staff person be involved. I think that the work on staff to prepare for the work sessions, we probably would have to do that whether we attended them or not. And I don't, I think we've got a team now where we can pull together and make that happen. If you want the work session.
For
in-
November, but not, I'm sorry, for December, but not November.
Either way, if you would like to try to squeeze one in ahead of the regular meeting the same day, we can do that for November.
January. January it is. All in favor?
Well, we'll split up then. I mean, somebody can attend TRC, somebody can be here. We're actually fully staffed now for,
I'm not in favor of a December meeting, even if I was going to be here. And discretion being the better part of valor, I will concede the point, and we will schedule it for January.
Want to wait and do that in December or next month?
I'm
Either one.
sorry?
Do you want to wait and schedule that in
Yeah,
next month or
we can
December?
formally schedule that at the November meeting. We don't have to formally do that today. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be the aforementioned November 16th. Remember, it's the third Thursday, not the fourth, for obvious reasons. It'll be 4 o'clock here in this room. Is there any other business? And may I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Carl, strangely enough, seconded by Richard. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.